If you want to see a whodunit murder mystery, where two people own 100% of a company, yet the company is inexplicably listed on the stock market and has other investors, where an autopsy report has the same name for the dead patient and the person who pronounced him dead, Katangari Goes to Town, currently streaming on Prime Video, is the movie for you. The film released on Prime Video on the 4th of January and is directed by Reuben Reng and written by Emil Garuba. It's insane to me that the trailer was released only about 2 days before the film, and I stumbled upon it completely by accident when looking for the trailer for another movie. So I wonder, do these filmmakers not know that sometimes they are the weapons fashioned against themselves? Okay, let's get into it. The first scene has some character building for our main character, retired detective Katangari, played by Segun Arinze. Or, if you are old enough, the famous Black Arrow in Silent Night, starring Ramsey Noah and Victoria Yama from the late 90s Nollywood. Very nice movie. It terrified me then. Now, disguised as a peasant farmer and while being part of a local vigilante group, the retired detective slides into some bandits' DM, feigning poverty and weakness, and catches them unawares as he overpowers them. Though it would appear that this bandit doesn't really eat well, since he is so easily manhandled by an old man. He arrests them, threatens to shoot off some balls if they don't repent of their sins, and is rewarded by the leader pissing his trousers when he lets off a warning shot. The detective is later reprimanded by the chief of the town when he submits the bandits to the police. For some reason, the police guy is also bothered that this most wanted bandit wet himself. I don't know. It felt like a Katangari drove enough fear into the heart of these thieves, and maybe the Nigerian police sponsored this movie so that they will look kind and empathetic, as if the bandits won't be released tomorrow morning. So we get down to business. Katangari receives a visit from his late cousin Belogiang's personal assistant, a woman named Mima. There was a line here that confused me because of Segun Arize's wrong delivery.
I left a message for you.
What?
Oh, no, not that type of message.
The what sounded like shock, not like an actual question of like what is the message. So I rewound that on the first watch to see if maybe the movie skipped or I missed the message. And I only understood what happened there when I was rewatching it for this review. If you think I'm being picky, just see how he says what when she tells him that he might lose his house if he doesn't follow her to Abuja as instructed by his late cousin's lawyer.
Losing your home?
What? It's the exact same way. The threat sways him and he decides to travel by road instead of flying back with her. We are given the picture of an old school detective with many accolades, though I cannot for the life of me figure out why they would awkwardly position this headline and the byline on the news on this paper about exemplary service, then give it a subheading about electricity tariff increase with a story about organized labor in Nigeria. So weird, so bloody weird. Nobody pays attention to these things and it just pisses me off. And we are just 30 minutes into the movie. He arrives at the house in Abuja and is introduced to his late cousin's wife, played by Munachiabe, and the ex-wife, played by Ireti Doyle, as they were bickering. Has anyone actually noticed that Ireti Doyle always picks her words in a way that makes it seem like all her movies are the same movie? Like, even when she's shouting, you get the idea that the next word might be a brooding whisper. Present at the house are also the lawyer, pastor, two kids, and the business partner of the late Chief Bello. So let me just give you a summary. The late Bello Gyang, before his death and as a precursor to his will, recorded a video stating that his death was most likely a murder, even though the autopsy report says he choked on his food, and requested the presence of his cousin Katangari to fish out who may have been responsible before his final will is read and his assets divided. Now, side note, I know everyone watching this already likes this type of content, this type of review, so I won't tell you to subscribe because you have obviously subscribed and liked this video and because you are not wicked. But this is my year of growing my Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok account. So if you don't mind, you can see the link in the description. You will be doing me a great service. My username is at EkweReviews on Twitter and Instagram and Ekwe.reviews on TikTok. This also means that you also get to see my shots as soon as I post them, because I usually don't post as much on my YouTube because somehow nobody sees them. And I really like making the shots for my videos. Okay, back to the show. Detective Katangari requests that no one leave the house except the lawyer while he carries on his investigation. But they obviously think he's joking, so they attempt to F around and they find out when he shoots into the air and requests the security men to lock down the place. The detective begins his interview round with the personal assistant, and so we learn a few things about the characters involved. For instance, Chief Bello didn't trust his business partner. He thought his wife, I'm not sure which, because of the way the personal assistant framed the statement. I wasn't sure if he was talking of the current or the ex. But Chief thought that the wife was sleeping with the butler, while the wife thought that Chief was sleeping around. Also, who uses a butler? Like, how is that a thing? That was one of the ways in which this movie is just so anglicized. I also noticed that the butler has the same surname as Suraya from Beyond the Veil. So, are they relations, husband, brother? I'm too lazy to actually check. So, let me know if you know in the comments. Chief also believed that his children loved his money more than him, even though they've lived with him since the divorce about 6 years ago. He calls out the house staff to get a read on them, and here it's basically some more character building stuff where we are showing his eye for detail and whatnot. I liked it. We take a look at the autopsy reports, and obviously, nobody on the film crew noticed that the name of the dead person and the name of the person who pronounced them dead are both Belogian. I mean, somebody on the movie set filmed this form, right? Like somebody filmed it, somebody filmed it. It did not click that the dead person and the let's just move on. According to the assistant, she had brought some papers for the chief to sign and was on her way out when she heard Bello's wife scream. According to Sophia, the wife, she had met Bello on a flight years ago when she was an aspiring model. Model, sure. And had helped him out in Lebanon, whatever that means. Had gotten a job from him and then gotten proposed to 6 months later. So why would anyone ever think that she would kill such a good man? She then blamed it on Ulan the ex, if there was anybody to blame, that is. According to the business partner, Ulan should be prime suspect because she had kept receiving so much money from Bello that she had even begun to affect the company finances. So it was possible that she wanted him dead to maybe get more out of the will or something, maybe through her 2 kids. The pastor also blamed the ex-wife because according to him, Bello thought that she had used juju to trap him into the marriage before the divorce. It's really difficult to explain the little moving parts of a whodunit murder mystery in an entertaining way. You will understand what I mean if you've seen movies like Knives Out and Glass Onion. So I'll just try to summarize it as best as I can. There's a side show too in this film where the peacocks in the compound keep disturbing the detective's sleep. The first time it happened, the guy actually brought out his gun to shoot them, but they were nowhere to be found when he went outside. I was actually a bit incredulous because, like, was he really actually going to shoot peacocks if he had seen them? Ew. Inspector interviews other people during the course of the following days, but doesn't really get anywhere. The business partner is behaving suspiciously as he answers calls in secret and searches Bello's office for something. And when confronted, his reason was that the share price of the company was dropping and the investors were getting nervous and so what. In this same conversation, it is revealed that he owns 45% of the company while Bello owed 55%, which begs the question, what bloody investors are you talking about if the shares between the two of you already adds up to 100%? This line made me mad because it again confirms that these Nollywood people, these writers, don't at all understand numbers or even the basics of corporate governance, and it just shows every damn time. You cannot learn anything about business from Nollywood. This reminds me of that nonsensical corporate governance that was in Lionheart and Chief Daddy. And maybe I should even review that Chief Daddy because that corporate governance was just insane. If the writer doesn't understand how shares and the stock market work, they should just ask somebody for the love of God. Emil Garuba, come on, man. The next Joe Red Herring is the pastor who has been receiving a lot of money from Chief Bello, but not a particular piece of land that the chief had been paying for. Now, when confronted, it turns out that the chief had discovered that the pastor was a womanizer and had a sex addiction and therefore withheld his charity for some time. The motive here being that he may have killed the chief to hide his secret permanently, but he wasn't really even in the house when the chief died, so I don't even know where the writer was going with this. Katangari sits down for a drink by the poolside with the business partner, aiming to get him drunk and learn some more about the business. Under the influence, he confesses that he gambled away company money to please his wife, who was sleeping with her tennis coach, and then he was later discovered by Bello, and well, his debts were finally forgiven. A moment later, he falls into a drunken stupor while Katangari goes through his phone to confirm his story. When they come back out, that's Katangari and the PA for further questioning of the business partner, they found out that the guy has fallen into the swimming pool and drowned. So it's now 1 hour 25 minutes into this 2 hour movie, and this is the first really interesting thing that has actually happened. Also, how is this drowning even possible when there are like 4 security men patrolling the grounds? Only the good Lord knows. The detective follows a lead based on something the business partner said just before he fell asleep, and then discovered some mildly interesting stuff that kind of wraps up the movie and betrays who the actual killer is. So I don't really want to spoil it. I mean, this movie just came out yesterday, and this is a whodunit where the pleasure is kind of in the layers of complication, as you try to figure out who the killer might be. You can go watch it on Prime Video. But I hope this review has been entertaining, even though I didn't spoil the killer. Now, though, my favorite part, which is where we get to the verdict. But before that, I have some issues with the story. According to the official autopsy report, where the chief pronounced himself dead, of course, the cause of death was choking. But the murderer had confessed that they had accosted the chief with his own gun. So my own thought was the intention to shoot the man if he had not had a small heart attack and choked on his food? I mean, you are the only person in the house with him. How were you able to get away with it? How would you have been able to get away with a loud bang from the chief's dining room? Also, where did the medical examiner get their degree from? The murderers actually said that the chief had a heart attack and they held down his head until he stopped breathing. So where did the choking pathology come from? First of all, I think it's a generally well-shot movie with good performances all round. The problem is that it is slow. For long stretches, you get the idea that people are saying a lot of things are moving on the screen, but nothing is happening. Let's start with the story. I was a bit pissed with this story because early on, the detective made someone his deputy investigator with this case. And as soon as that happened, I figured, well, this is obviously the killer because they are trying to make us feel like they can do no wrong, which was why they were co-opted as investigators. And then I wondered if maybe the writers wanted to be subversive by removing that someone from the list of suspects, truly. But as time went on and that person was never, ever really suspected, I actually settled on them. I was pissed because I think the writers should not have played their hand so early. There's a scene too where someone jumps out of a toilet window, but what toilet window has this big ass window and also a split unit air conditioner? Like, what? There was a scene where Katangari extended the prayer at the dining table, even to the annoyance of the pastor. I actually laughed out at that particular scene because it surprised me too. The request to investigate his death by Chief Bello Giang, which precedes everything that happens in this movie, is anchored on the fact that, well, he said that people have tried to kill him before and failed, even though we ended up not having any extra information about that attempt. He also mentioned that he hired the best detective in Abuja, and that guy ended up in a suspicious car accident on a lonely road. So now that we know that the killer is close to him, is the late chief then saying that the person tried to kill him before and failed? Like, how? During the confession, the murderer never mentioned this attempt. And also, seeing as all the suspects are all close to Chief Bello and could have had the opportunity to end him anytime, how could the attempt have failed? And are they saying that the killer is truly responsible for the death of the detective that had a car accident on a lonely road? As far as we know, the killer is working alone, and we never get any information that they did all of this. By nature, right, these sort of movies get very complicated, and I always believe that the writers end up tripping themselves up and writing themselves into a corner in order to make the movie interesting. You just know that there is something wrong, but you're not exactly able to articulate it sometimes. But for this Katangari, the plot is not so convoluted as to obfuscate this very important piece of the backstory on which the entire thing hinges. What happens is that there are red herrings with big plot holes and sometimes no opportunity to commit the crime. Like, for example, the two wives were loudly fighting before he died and were nowhere near him. Also, it is revealed that the killer actually used the chief's own gun on him before choking him. Where did they get the gun from? And were they really planning on shooting him if he hadn't entered a cardiac arrest? Like, shoot the chief in his own house while people were just outside the door? How were they going to escape afterwards? Another weak point in this story was the CFO, the chief, the business partner. What was he hoping to get out of all of this? Why was he searching the chief's offices at some point? Was he looking for money? Did Chief Bello have his nudes or what? And why did he tell the person on the phone that everything will be sorted when the will is read? Surely he was not expecting to receive anything from the will of his business partner, right? Unfortunately, a lot of the movie drags. I woke up early on the 4th to watch it on Prime Video, but I honestly just kept drifting back to sleep halfway through. In that way, it was a somewhat difficult watch for me. The movie is also derivative as it just follows the classic whodunit tropes without any room for any like maybe Nigerian or African ingenuity. It reads like Knives Out but with black people, down to the eccentricity of the detective. Even the red herring motives and themes are derivative. They have divorce, business dealings, sin in the church. Like much of the story happens on one location. So some diversity in the theme or in the story would have just been nice. For the story, I'd rate it a 2/5. For the performances, I think they were all right. I think Segun Arinze spoke too fast and too loud sometimes while trying to act that eccentric bit. But maybe that's just me. And everyone did, well, all right, reasonably well, I guess, and nothing jumps out at me. The editing is not super, especially towards the end when the girl Shatong is in focus a bit. Like there are times where she speaks twice, and I just get the idea that maybe she said more, but the editor just cut off the rest of her sentence. I don't know. So for me, for the performances, let me just give it a 3/5. The cinematography was really nice. In fact, now that I think about it, they had some really nice shots of some rural areas at the beginning. Imagine if some or all of the story had happened in that village. That may have introduced some very nice visual elements that would separate it from the usual whodunit trope, where everyone is always rich. Whoever died is always super rich, and they were trying to figure out, who killed them. I wish they had just gone a bit astray from that path. The dialogue, this was the weakest point in the story. It was very cliche. A lot of it was not compelling or didn't really make too much sense in the grand scheme of things when you think about it. And I think that's what bogged the story down. Everyone had a lot to say, but nothing interesting or new. And I think that was why I just kept falling asleep. For me, the dialogue would be maybe a 1.5 or 2/5. Let me just leave it at 1.5. In general, it's an okay watch. It seemed like it wouldn't take itself too seriously, but towards the end it did. Segun Arinze was able to hold my attention, so he made it a bit more interesting. Mima Ekadem, played by Patience Uja, was, I think, also good in the role. Yeah, it's my first time seeing her, but I think she did quite all right. The movie stopped being a comedy long before the midpoint of the 2-hour runtime, and if you think about it even slightly, the ending is almost completely bogus. But I'm willing to bet many people would have maybe lost interest before then. I don't know. It just springs up on you. It has nice visuals, but a weak story and dialogue. But I think you'll enjoy it. I don't know how to set it out. It's not interesting, but it's not very interesting. But it's also nice to look at. So I think you enjoy it if you want to see Segun Arinze, on your screen to start out the new year. Oh, by the way, I reviewed A Night in 2005, starring Ini Dimaokoje on December 31st. So please check that out. That was my last video for 2024. Overall, I would give this movie a rating of, let's say 2.5/5. It's not super engaging, but it's really nice to look at. And Segun Arinze and Mima elevates the story because of their performances. So I finished writing this review, and I just hopped on Twitter to look at what's happening, and I saw that there was a new skit from Mr. Macaroni that had Segun Arinze in it, and in that skit he actually said, "My name is Black Arrow," and I just laughed out loud because I had literally just written that in this review. Okay, that'll be all from me. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave a comment on this video if you've seen the movie or even if you haven't. I'll see you on the next one.